We talk about boomers, millennials, and Gen Z like they're rival sports teams, right? We're all familiar with that friction, the endless stream of memes, the heated arguments over who had it tougher. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? Okay, let's dive into this.
We see it everywhere, don't we? The so-called generational wars. It's that constant back and forth about avocado toast versus home ownership or job hopping versus company loyalty. But is that really the full story?
Or is there something deeper going on? A kind of hidden code that explains not just our differences, but why those differences are actually essential. The whole idea is that every generation is almost a biological response to the world it was born into. So we aren't just different in our tastes, we're fundamentally different in our core abilities.
And that brings us to the core concept for today, the generational code. Think of it this way. Each era literally hardwires certain cognitive strengths into its people while letting other skills kind of fade into the background. So today, we're going to decode the specific superpowers of each living generation and maybe figure out why the world desperately needs every single one.
All right, let's start at the very foundation of our social stack. This is the world of the silent generation and the boomers, a layer that's built on something we can call analog resilience.
Now, what's so fascinating here is that we're talking about a completely different reality. These generations were forged in a world of, well, physical permanence. Information didn't just pop up in a notification. It was scarce and it was slow. And if you wanted to connect with people, physical presence was mandatory. I mean, there just wasn't another option.
And that environment, it hardwired a very specific superpower, linear endurance. This is the capacity for deep work, for really long-term concentration, and for navigating these complex, non-digital systems that would honestly overwhelm a lot of us today. It's that ability to focus on one thing, deeply, for a very, very long time. And this really gets to the heart of their core contribution. The key point is that this endurance provides stability. It's the kind of patience and focus you need to build institutions, companies, and infrastructure from the ground up, literally brick by physical brick. Okay, so let's move up to the next layer and see how this all connects. Meet the bridge generations. We're talking Gen X and the millennials. They are the architects of adaptability, and they hold a truly unique spot in history. I mean, just look at this timeline. These generations lived through all of it. They actually remember the analog world. They went through that messy, chaotic dial-up phase of the digital transition, and now they live in a fully digital reality. They're the only ones who have seen all three of these phases firsthand. This whole experience gave them a superpower that might never exist again, a kind of bilingualism of realities. They're fluent in both analog and digital logic. They get the why behind the old world systems, but they also get the how of the new world's technology. They can read a room in person and tear through a complex spreadsheet. So, what's their crucial contribution? It's adaptability. They are the translators, right? The essential layer that keeps the entire system from breaking as we lurch from one reality to the next. They're the ones keeping the old world talking to the new. And that brings us to the top layer, the digital natives. Gen Z and now Gen Alpha. These are the masters of synthesis, and they operate with a completely different kind of intuition. We often criticize younger generations for having short attention spans, but this really reframes that whole debate. Older generations were trained to see the world in lines, like a linear progression of information. But digital natives, they don't see lines, they see networks. They process information all at once, simultaneously, not one after the other. And this gives them this incredible ability of multi-stream synthesis. A Gen Z or Alpha person can process input from a video, a group chat, a podcast, and an AI assistant all at the same time. They're not distracted, they're processing at a speed the analog brain just wasn't built for. It's pretty wild. Now, in a world that is just drowning in noise and misinformation and deepfakes, this processing power creates a vital new skill, hyperfiltration. It's this almost instinctive, split-second ability to figure out what's real, what's authentic, and what actually matters. So the key takeaway here is that their contribution is synthesis. They take this vast, chaotic network of modern information and just intuitively combine it into something new, something meaningful. Okay, so we've walked through these three very distinct layers. Now let's put them all together and look at the complete social stack. We often treat these differences as flaws, like a boomer's slowness with tech or Gen Z's screen time. But when you start to see society as this unified system, the whole picture changes.
And this illustrates the whole system perfectly. You absolutely need the foundation of stability to build anything that's going to last. You need that bridge of adaptability to connect the past to the future without the whole thing collapsing. And you need the canopy of synthesis to navigate the complex world we live in right now. The kicker? Each layer is basically useless without the others.
So the ultimate takeaway is this: that friction, the arguments, the misunderstandings between generations, that isn't a bug in our social code. It is the feature. It's the very engine that pushes us forward, forcing us to adapt and stabilize and synthesize all at the same time. See, we don't need to be the same. We just need to understand the unique code each of us brings to the table. So that leaves us with one final question to think about. Looking at these layers, which superpower do you find yourself using most? Are you a builder, a translator, or a synthesizer?